I've been living in Croatia for 20 years, and I'm generally a guy that understands what's going on in life, but literally it took me 13 years of my time here until I really started to understand what made Croatia tick and how Croatia actually worked. Looking back, I put a large part of that on the fact that I lived on a tourist island of Uhljeb. I had a very idyllic island lifestyle, and I wasn't really too engaged in what was going on in Croatia proper. And then when I started my news portal, Total Croatian News, in 2015, that all changed. There's one word which, when I heard for the first time and I understood what it meant, completely changed my understanding of Croatia in total, and it completely changed my relationships with most of my friends in Croatia. It was as though by learning this word, I had become one of them. And I learned about it because it was the headline of an article about me in Index, the most popular portal here, which had this word. The word in Croatian is Uhljeb. I, at the time, was in a very silly discussion trying to improve the tourist information flow in Jelsa by getting the bus timetables updated, and I was criticising the local tourist board for the fact they hadn't done that. Somehow this became a national news story, and somehow the director of the tourist board at the time took offence to it and wrote this huge argument as to why he'd been doing his job perfectly, and the national media took over this. They then had this headline that the national tourist board said, "Nisam Uhljeb." I'm not an Uhljeb. And I was completely traumatized that I was on the front page of the national media. I had no idea what this word Uhljeb was, and I asked on Facebook, what does this mean? Tons and tons and tons of comments from various different people saying basically it was a word like a parasite or a leech or a latcheron. They had a job for life through their cousin or some political thing, and that this was the reason why Croatia was the way it was. And I was totally shocked that I'd lived on this island for so long and the bureaucracy wasn't very good, and I just assumed that was because things were a bit slow because the sun was shining and that nothing really worked. And the more I looked into it, the more this cult of Uhljeb was everywhere. And so I started to delve a little bit deeper, and then I understood how Croatia worked and why so many Croatian people were emigrating. And it wasn't necessarily because of the lack of opportunity, or that does exist, but a lot of it was because of this nepotism and this cult of Uhljeb. Once I started writing about this phenomenon of Uhljeb, all my Croatian friends they were like, wow, now you understand how things are. And our friendships changed, and they become a lot deeper. For example, when I was doing my tourism promotion stuff when I was on Total FR, I'd go to the local tourist boards and I would say, this is my project, it's a great project, I need some financial support, is there something you'll support? And they never would. A friend of mine told me one day, that's because you're not in a political party. And I said, well, why should I be in a political party to promote tourism? It was then explained to me that everything in Croatia is done in a very political way. Every single appointment is a political appointment. Every single tourist board director is not necessarily there for the tourism promotion or the tourism experience. And so if you support the mayor in his political campaign and you're of the right party, then when he gets back into power, he's then going to share all the spoils with the most influential people that can perpetuate the status quo. What's happened over many years in Croatia is that most of the positions of authority are not done on merit whatsoever, they're done as political patronage. And so what you have is very average people doing the most important jobs, and the very capable people who are not politically motivated are automatically shut out of that opportunity. And so what's happened over the years is people who are young, who are bright, see that unless they join the system, which they don't want to join, the only opportunities they have are to move elsewhere into other countries. And this is a huge part of what the emigration's about. I then became quite fascinated about Uhljebistan, and I started writing about it. And I have this mythical country called the Mighty State of Uhljebistan, which grows inside Croatia. And the more I wrote about it, the more people would say to me, how do you say Uhljeb in English? Literally, it comes from the Serbian word hljeb, and so it means Uhljeb means inbred, which gave me a very nice way of saying it. So I say that because it's also jobs for cousins, so it's a little bit inbred, as in family. So I describe being an Uhljeb as being an inbred. I then became known a little bit more associated with the cult of Uhljeb when I made a little bit of a joke on my Facebook page a couple of years ago, and I changed the logo of the Croatian National Tourist Board from Croatia Full of Life to Croatia Full of Uhljebs, which got me a lawsuit for 50,000 kuna, which was withdrawn after 2.5 years. And so this culture of Uhljeb, it does exist, it continues to exist. It's one of the most damaging things for Croatian society, and I think the more we stand up and fight about it, the better. And the good news, I think, is that the two viruses of technology and transparency are slowly but surely attacking away at the walls of the mighty state of Uhljebistan. And I think Croatia is due for a better future.